People pleasing. This is the topic we're going to discuss today in this video, and it is a huge block that people run into, especially when it comes to having the ability to choose God and His will for us, be able to hear God's voice, and be able to feel worthy. It causes very big blocks in many areas of our lives, so let's get into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is what is people pleasing? Okay, putting others' needs before our own. The sacrificing of our own needs pleasing others to feel safe. And there are many other descriptions for people pleasing, but you get the gist, right? So we're putting other people's needs before our own. We are sacrificing our own needs. So ultimately, we are abandoning ourselves in that inner voice and inner guidance, the Holy Spirit inside of us, which causes a lot of issues in our life, causes anxiety, causes shame, causes guilt, causes all those low vibrating emotions that we talk about, and then pleasing others to feel safe. So we're going to get into why it is that we people please, like with the origin story, where does this block typically come from? But usually what we're trying to do is feel safe. So people pleasing is predominantly driven by fear. And as we know, low vibrating emotions, emotions that keep us stuck, fear, shame, guilt, anxiety, apathy, anger, right? And what we want to do is make decisions from a place of courage, peace, love, joy, acceptance. And I'll pull up the chart here so you can see the level of emotions, the different emotions, because understanding emotions is a very human skill that we need to have in order to understand our subconscious and in order to understand our inner workings so that we can heal and get closer to God. Because the more you heal, the closer you get to God. I know this because the only reason I was saved by Jesus was because I was able to open my heart through all of the healing work that I did, through understanding my emotions, releasing trapped emotions, and being able to let go of my trauma and hand it over to Him. And it is a big deal to go from pleasing people to pleasing God, because that is where we feel good. We feel at peace. We feel joy. We feel love. We feel all those good emotions. That's why when we take courageous action towards something we know is good for us, our body feels good. Our soul lights up. Like it just feels nice. Versus when we make decisions and we end up pleasing somebody or making plans that we didn't really want to make, we're sitting there so frustrated and annoyed with ourselves. Now we have to backpedal. We don't really want to go, or we're doing things we don't want to do. And we've got all these stuck low vibrating emotions that are in our body and that we're vibrating with right now. And that's the thing. We are very vibratory beings. Like you can tell when somebody steps in the room, like when somebody's angry versus when somebody's joyful. One is magnetic and one is repulsive. One's like, ooh, you're angry. I don't really want any of that. Like stay over there with your angry sauce, right? Like, but when somebody's joyful and excited, it's just like magnetic. You want to be around them. And it's the same thing when it comes to being able to allow other things into your life, like a loving relationship or good health or even money and all of that stuff. So we've got to really look at this piece here, which is feeling safe. And that goes into child brain versus adult brain. If you haven't seen that video where I break those two down, child brain says I'm still stuck under somebody else's roof, trying to not able to control my surroundings or my environment or anything because I'm still stuck under somebody else's roof, versus I'm an empowered adult. I can make my own decisions. I can set boundaries. I can speak up for my needs because I'm safe now. I can leave a situation. But the thing is, we feel like we're not emotionally safe. So let's get into why it is that we people please, because that's really going to help us get a little closer to uncovering that block. And then we'll get into what it looks like to move away from pleasing people and into pleasing God, listening to his will. Okay. Why we people please. Now, there are many different reasons for this, but we're going to discuss a few. And if you have anything else that comes up for you, please leave it in the comments. I would love to hear from you and love to hear what's coming up for you. So, one is we didn't feel emotionally safe to be ourselves. Okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? So if we didn't feel emotionally safe to be ourselves, that means like anytime you wanted to play basketball when your parent or your caregiver wanted you to play cheerleading or do cheerleading or play another sport or do cooking or do something else, it wasn't emotionally safe. You felt rejected, right? And that or rejection or that abandonment or a caregiver or somebody being mad at you for wanting to be yourself or express yourself authentically is very emotionally unsafe. That hurts. And that hurts deeply in your heart. And that's something that causes like these trapped emotions of feeling abandoned, feeling shameful for being yourself or feeling even guilty. And that's something you really have to take a look at is, did you have an upbringing where you were able to be your authentic self and be accepted and loved for that, right? Like we're looking at these emotions. Were these emotions more so at play, or were these emotions, were you shamed for wanting to be yourself, or was there fear? Well, um, I'm not going to support you anymore if you make this decision, or feeling like a caregiver wasn't going to love you. I can give you an example. One of my clients, when he was young, very young, he was a child. So sometimes he'd want to go to the park or he'd want to do stuff like a normal child would want to do. And his caregivers would say things like, "Oh, you want to go to the park? Like, oh, everything's about you, isn't it?" And he's 5 years old, right? And that really stuck in his heart and mind, and he remembers those moments. And so he doesn't feel like it's safe to ask for what he wants or to be who he wants to be and express himself in the way that he was expressing. But that's little child brain, that's little 5-year-old self that's still behaving from that place. And you see that child brain versus that adult brain. An adult empowered brain says the past has no depiction on who I am as a 30-year-old person, right? A 30-year-old empowered adult where I can walk away, I can make my own decisions, I can go ahead and choose a different route. I can like, God is all that matters to me. Like, God is the only one that says I'm worthy or not. Versus when we were growing up, we needed our caregivers to give us shelter, to give us care, to feed us, to keep us alive, basically. And it's a survival tactic. And that's why that whole safety thing comes into play. It is feeling safe, right? So we didn't feel emotionally safe to be ourselves, okay? Others around us were emotionally unstable. I want to make a note here so I don't forget. Okay, because I really want to talk about that one. But let's talk about others around us were emotionally unstable. So this is a tough one because if others around us, it doesn't even have to be in a physically dangerous way, although that can manifest in this way, right? Like if somebody was explosive and can get abusive or physical or aggressive when their emotions erupt, like we're more easily going to we're more likely to diminish our emotions and just be like, how do I please and make this person okay? And the same thing goes for even like a caregiver. Like I've seen this many times in clients where the mother that they grew up with is very emotional. She cries a lot and she's really needy, codependent on the child even. And the kid ends up feeling like he or she cannot feel their own emotions. They must caretake for the caregiver's emotions. So it can show up like that. And I've also seen in clients where their caregiver was emotionally unstable in an aggressive and angry way, where they also felt like, okay, what do I need to do to keep this environment safe? So again, it's trying to stay safe and making sure, okay, is everything okay? Is everybody okay? Are people going to explode around me? Or does somebody need to be taken care of emotionally? I need to put my emotions aside. So you can kind of see this little child suppressing their own emotions and losing the ability to feel their own emotions, express their own emotions and needs little by little. And you can see why people pleasing would come about. One, it's wired by the time you're an adult, but two, it's a safety mechanism. And when a caregiver around you can't emotionally stabilize themselves or regulate themselves, and you feel like you need to do so in order to stay safe, emotionally safe, physically safe, then yes, of course, this people pleasing is going to come about. Okay, this next one is that note helped me remember to say that every time that you bring up your emotions, and you bring up your emotions, someone takes it personally. This one really sucks. This one really makes you feel bad. I know that this is one that I've gone through. You see it in dating, you see it show up in dating, you see it in caregivers, and how this looks is when you bring up an emotion. So say, hey, like when this happened, it made me feel sad. Or when you didn't take out the trash, I felt not taken care of. Or I felt, you hear couples talk about that. Let me think of a better example. When you said X, Y, and Z about my outfit, I took it personally and it made me feel bad, right? And what happens here is like gaslighting gaslighting pretty much. And it's like either that person just starts crying and they're like, I didn't mean to make you feel bad, I blah, 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 and they can't honor your emotions and hold space for your emotions. Or they get defensive and they say like, oh, you're just being sensitive, blah, 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 blah. And so you just keep learning to diminish your emotions more and more, because I know I've experienced it personally. When you bring something up and somebody else starts crying and they're like, oh, and they're so upset that you're upset that you don't get to be upset. So others rob you of feeling your emotions, right? So, and that's it. And that's it. And what we need to learn to do is not solve the problem. So this goes both ways. And we'll talk about ways to heal these, but it's not about solving the problem. It's about supporting. And what you needed in that moment was support. So others will rob you of feeling your own emotions because they will get emotional about you having emotions. So then again, you don't get to have emotions and you have to put people first and people please, right? And here's what happens when we do people please over and over and over again. And we talk about this a lot. Every single thing that you do sends your brain a message. Okay, if you know the pattern breaking method, you know that we talk about how a limiting belief creates a fear, which creates a behavior, which creates an outcome, which constantly keeps you stuck in this pattern. So if you have this limiting belief that my needs are not important because of all that you've gone through, every single time you people please, you just confirm that limiting belief. So you need to realize that every single time you people please, you just sent your brain a message that my needs are not important. So you keep yourself stuck in this loop. And here's the problem. Here's the thing is, how do I want to do this? Okay, let's do it. Let's talk about how this impacts you, what people pleasing impacts. Because every single time you send your brain a message, my needs are not important when you people please. So, impacts of people pleasing on your life. Most important part is you can't hear God's voice. He says many times in the Bible to not fear man, but to fear him. And when we are constantly fearing man and fearing humans and fearing people and hurting their feelings and not being safe, that we are not able to hear God's voice. And Holy Spirit guides us throughout our life. And when we are not guided by that voice, we know that no matter where you end up or what you do, you don't feel good inside. It doesn't feel good. You don't know what you want. When I was healing my people-pleasing wound, I remember saying, I just don't know what I want. I wish somebody could help me know what I want. And it's because you've lived life so long through the eyes of others in order to stay safe, when really you've made that up in your mind because you don't need to, you can go create your own safety. You can go and walk with God and pray to God and sit with Jesus and really understand, okay, tell me where to go. Help me, guide me. And tell me what to do. Like, now that we have this place that we can be with God, He can guide you. And it's releasing that fear of man. That's really an illusion, because you get to make your own decisions. You get to get out of your own way. And it's going to be healing those blocks. So you don't know what you want. You can't hear God's voice. And isolation becomes very predominant. Sometimes you just end up swinging completely and you're like, I just won't leave the house. I know. That'll be great. I'll work from home. I won't leave the house. I won't make any friends because I'll never have to tell anybody no. And I won't I won't grow, or I won't take the next step because I won't have to set boundaries. When I became a coach, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you, my inbox is very full. And I used to answer everybody's messages. But as I grew as a coach, I couldn't answer everybody's messages. It hurt my heart for a while because I felt bad. I'm like, oh, how are they going to feel if I don't answer and this and that? That came from a wound, certainly a people-pleasing wound. And I had to be able to, if I was going to expand and grow, I knew I wasn't going to be able to take the next step if I didn't go and set those boundaries. So a lot of times we isolate or we hold ourselves back, simply because we don't trust ourselves and we're not able to find that guidance versus be controlled by other people. Really, we're being controlled and we're letting other people control us. And we're also, and that's the thing, you feel shameful because you lie about who you are and what you want. Because that's what we do when we people please. We end up lying about who we are. We end up doing things that we don't want to do, saying yes to things that we don't want to, and we end up choosing pleasing others and staying in good graces with others and manipulating how they see us. And this is a tough journey because the thing is, everybody likes you, and then all of a sudden, like, it gets a little more narrow, because really you're supposed to only surround yourself with certain people that are going to encourage your growth, the people that God needs you to be around to encourage the path that He wants you to be on. And when you're surrounding yourself with everybody and making sure you're okay with everybody all the time, it's too much. It's too much. And I've been there before where it's just like it's an overload. And we're not able to walk the path that we're meant to walk. So you feel shameful because you lie about who you are. and what you want. So, and you isolate and you burn yourself out. On the other side of isolation is burnout / doing too much. You end up absolutely depleted. And you just give and you give and you give and you give. And then all of a sudden you feel empty inside. And again, you can't hear God's voice. You're not connected / not connected. We all know that's the worst feeling in the world. I've been so scared of not being connected that there's been times like I shut everything off in my life because I'm like, I'm so connected to God right now. I can't incorporate anything else. But the point is to be able to take the righteous steps and follow his will, and also fall down, get back up again, fall down, get back up again, because he does redirect us through our actions. So don't be scared. But really, just being not connected is not fun. And then, you don't know what you want. You don't know who you are. The same way somebody made you feel as when you were growing up, right? So these are the impacts. Not fun. Not fun. Let's talk about what you can do about this to heal it. Because again, the more you heal, the closer it brings you to God. How to heal. People pleasing. All right, the first one is you're probably so wired to saying yes all the time. You're going to have to rediscover who you are. And this is what I call the exploratory phase, because you don't really know. You've probably severed that connection. You don't know what you want. You don't know who you are. You don't really know how to take steps towards the things that light you up. And you think that pleasing others is what lights you up, when really it just gets you a little small dopamine high of validation, when really the only validation we're seeking is his. So we're going to have to rewire that. We're going to have to rewire that whole, I need to please others to feel good, where I need to please God to feel good, because you're used to getting that little dopamine validation high off of pleasing people. And now it's going to look very, very different. So, from yes, this is my favorite thing ever. You're not going to want to go straight to no, because it's going to be, this is your journey towards practicing saying, taking space to figure out who it is you are and what you want. And going straight to no is very intimidating, and I find that people can rarely ever go straight to no, I don't want to do that. Here's my boundaries, this or that. And it's going to be yes to maybe. Yes to let me get back to you. Right? Yes to let me call you back in maybe an hour or so. Let me think about that. Let me process that. So versus going yes to no, I'm not going to do that, because maybe you don't know if it's a no, and that's okay. I'm still in a place where I say maybe. I rarely say no, because I usually always have to think about it. I'm a big processor, and I don't really know what I want straight off the bat typically. And it takes me a while to really get there and figure out, okay, what do I really want? So I like to pray on it. I like to sit with God. I like to ask God. Everything I do now, I pray first. As long as I stay with it. And that's what you're probably going to want to do. You're going to want to go away from the yes, the immediate yes. You can even say oh, that sounds like a good idea, but you know what? Let me just process that and think about how that could work. And if that works, and then let me get back to you, right? And that's such a kind response, right? When you hear me say that, you're like, oh, okay, I could do that. That sounds nice. So that's what you're going to want to do. Yes to maybe. Go pray on it, sit on it, think about it, and really assess that need and that desire to please others and be liked by others, and try to make that switch over to God, what do you want for me? What Holy Spirit, guide me. Is this a good decision for me, right? You're going to get yourself wrapped up in very difficult relationships, very difficult work relationships and work decisions. I have a client who works a lot for free. I've even done that in the beginning of my career. You work a lot for free because you just want to help everybody. You just want to give to everybody. But this is a place where we kind of even out even out the space here, where you learn to receive too. And that's another thing that I didn't even write up, but people pleasing causes a big receiving block. So when somebody wants to give you love, or when somebody wants to give you a gift or give you a compliment, you often reject it because it's not safe to have the attention on you. It's only safe to give, and make sure everybody else is safe and happy. So again, that's sacrificing your own needs and your own wants and your desires. So going from yes to maybe or let me get back to you. Boundaries. I love boundaries. And this is where you get to sit down and decide what your boundaries are. So maybe when you have meetings with people, I can say, for example, when I first started my coaching business, I used to have discovery calls or even one-on-one calls, and I would go overtime. And first of all, that doesn't make me a very respectable coach, or showing that I'm not even respectful of my own time. And also respecting the container that we're in, right? And I used to have to learn to either give somebody a heads up because they talk so much, or they really get going and it's hard to break them off. So when it's like 5 to 10 minutes before the session, I say like, okay, we have 7 minutes left, or we've got 5 minutes left. What do you want to wrap up with today? Or let's wrap up with some goals, right? So setting boundaries, and I had to learn how to do that, but I just wanted to please. I like wanted to be there. I wanted to help, but I had to learn that boundaries make me more respectable. And from there, I was able to raise my prices, become a more respectable coach because I respected myself. And so, how you treat yourself really sends a lot of messages to your mind as to how you're going to operate. So, setting boundaries, and that means you need to determine what boundaries are right for you. Do you have, when you have like client calls, are they 1 hour? Do you have a 15-minute kind of period where you can maybe go over a little bit, maybe not? Or do you cut it at that hour, right? Even when I hang out with friends, I try to keep it at like 2 hours, depending on what we're doing. But if we're just going for a walk or something, because I have so much to do in my life, I've got a pup, I've got a life, I've got food to eat, and like I could talk for hours. I could talk to a rock. That's just the type of person I am. And I had to set boundaries. And as I go on dates, same thing. I don't go on initial dates more than 2 hours. And if I do, it's just like it happens to be too long, starts taking away from my life. I don't have the right time to process. We get into conversation that I don't really want to get into in the beginning stages because we've just hung out for too long. So it's like these boundaries that you start to bring into play in your life, even boundaries around food and eating. I mean, I was vegan for a while. I had a lot of health issues, so I tried a lot of different diets. And I just set a lot of boundaries around that. And the thing is, boundaries make you feel like a burden. And if you're a people pleaser, you probably felt like a burden your entire life. But you get to determine the boundaries and then you stick with them. Determine boundaries. Stick with them. And be easy on yourself, okay? Listen, the self-talk is going to be everything in this journey. So when you're setting a boundary and you end up saying yes, and you want to get mad at yourself because you're like, oh, I meant to say maybe, I just didn't get to think about it. And then you're mad at yourself, you're frustrated with yourself. Sit back and remind yourself to be easy on yourself and to love on yourself and say like, hey, we're on this journey together here. Like, it's okay. We said yes this time, but next time, let's say maybe. How do we figure this out? Should I send them a text and say, hey, I preemptively said yes to this, but in truth, I don't have the space for it, right? And can you send a message like that? And then it'll become less and less that you have to send those messages and cancel on everybody. And more often, when you're kind to yourself and you take your steps, then you'll start saying maybe, and then you'll start getting to your no, right? And another thing is to preface conversations. Preface conversations and make another note to remember. Okay, Preface conversations meaning, so when we were talking about when you come to them and you try to express your emotions and you're gaslit or they make you feel like their emotions are more important. So say you tell somebody you're sad about something and they end up being more sad than you, then you may want to preface some conversations and say, hey, I'm just needing some support. I really don't want your feedback on this, but I just want the space to vent. And if you want to say anything, like, could you please ask me for permission? I really just want this space to vent. And I know that's a hard conversation to have. I get it, but play with it and take your steps towards it. But it's a really good idea to preface a conversation and say, like, hey, I just want to kind of let you know some of my feelings. And I really don't want you to take it personally. It's not personal. I just need a space to vent right now. Or I just want to tell you about something and I don't want any feedback. Because some people will start to get really amped up about your personal situation when really all you want to do is you just want to express yourself. You just want to chat. You just want to vent. And when somebody gets so ramped up about it, it's like, I don't have the space to feel or to figure out my emotions. So preface conversations. Another one is um another one is choose wisely who to speak with. So I know it sucks. I know you wish your mom could be the person that you went to for problems because a mom's supposed to be able to do that, but it might be that your mom's not that person. It might be that you wish your dad was the one that would protect you and you can go to him with your issues, but it might be that your dad's not that person. I know you wish that your best friend could give you sound advice, but maybe your best friend's not that person. So you just need to really accept people for who they are, and you really need to know who you can go to for love and support. And that might mean, that's what it meant for me. I didn't have people around me that I could go to that I knew could give me good advice or that could listen or just be there for me. So I hired coaches. I hired a therapist. I hired people that were trained and skilled in these areas so that I could finally start healing my people pleasing wound, healing my perfectionism wound, healing my heart, right? And all these things. And so you really need to be careful as to who it is that you confide in, who it is that you surround yourself with. And I know you're going to want to just dump it because it's so bottled up in there, but that's why you really need to get support or you need to talk to God. And it is normal, very normal to want to have that supportive person in your life, but you really need to be real with yourself and accept who it is that you can truly be that with. Okay. Lastly, let's talk about how to move away from the people pleasing and the fear of man and into the fear of God and following his will, right? So, pleasing people to pleasing God. So, what this is going to look like is it's going to be immediate response to please. What that's going to look like is take space, use your maybe, sit with God, and ask him. Holy Spirit will always guide you, so you really have to get quiet. Get quiet. Okay. This is going to look like seeking validation from others. Seeking to please God. And you'll know when you've done his will. Like, it feels good. It feels like the right side of the emotions versus the left side of the emotions, because we're constantly running in circles when we're trying to seek validation from others. It gives us a quick high and then it goes away. But when you're actually seeking to please God, it is this long-term peace that you have in your body. I only know the difference because I've tried both. And when you move away from this need to seek validation from others and into seeking to please God, it is a whole new experience. Okay? Feeling unsafe with others. And you know this feeling because when you get around people, like your immediate thought is like, what do people think of me? I need to put on this performance. And you clench and your body feels really tight and anxious. But really, it's knowing I am safe with God. You are an adult. You are an empowered adult. And you are safe. Holy Spirit guides you into safety. Ask God to keep you safe. It is not up to others to keep you safe. Not anymore. When you were a little kid, again, you relied on somebody to feed you, to keep you safe, for shelter, but you don't need this from others anymore. And that's when we get stuck in that little childlike self. And if you are somebody who needs coaching around this, we do a lot of inner child healing when it comes to the one-on-one coaching. And definitely reach out or schedule a free discovery call if there's slots available down in the description, because this is such a big one. Because in order to be a leader in this world or a nurturer or whomever it is that you want to be and that you're meant to be, that for God's given purpose, you're going to have to feel safe again. You're going to have to heal those childhood wounds. You're going to have to heal and do the inner child work, because that is what brings you closer to God. But when we have all those disruptive, trapped emotions of guilt and shame and anger and resentment and all of these emotions trapped in our body, we can't get over to the other side here. We can't get to what is God. God is love. God is peace. We can't get there. And because there's all this stuff that's in the way. And so I really want to see you heal. And I know you're watching this video because you really want to heal too. And this is a channel where we heal to get closer to God through a 4-step proven framework of mine. If you haven't watched my other videos, definitely check it out. And God-centered principles. And yeah, I'm wishing you all the luck. And again, if you need that support, check down in the description. I sometimes do free offers. And if I'm gonna post about free offers, it's gonna be on a post on YouTube. So you might want to subscribe to the channel so then you get those what's it called? Those notifications. And yeah, check out the description if you need further resources. That's all I have for you today.